All right, we're diving into an ancient story today, and it's about a guy who spent his entire life trying to be a dog. Seriously. So, here's the big question. Could acting like a dog actually lead to enlightenment? I know, it sounds pretty out there, but for some, this was a dead serious spiritual path. And this whole story really makes you wonder, what's more important on the path to wisdom? These super extreme things we do, or is it something else? Let's get into it. Okay, so our story kicks off with this really fascinating encounter with the Buddha. But the two people who show up to see him, yeah, they are definitely not your average folks. So, picture this. We're in a town in the land of the Koreans, and two guys who have taken their spiritual practices to the absolute, and I mean absolute, extreme, come looking for some answers. All right, so let me introduce you to our two main characters. We've got Senya, who is known as the dog duty ascetic, and his buddy Puna, the ox duty ascetic. And when I say their dedication was absolute, I'm not kidding. Senya didn't just pretend to be a dog, he lived like one. We're talking sleeping curled up on the ground, eating food right off the floor. And Puna, he did the same thing, but as an ox. Yep, even grazing on grass. This wasn't some weekend hobby, this was their entire existence. So after dedicating your entire life to something that intense, you can bet they had a pretty big question on their minds. What was the point of it all? What was the payoff for all that sacrifice? It's actually Punya who asks first, and he asks about his friend Senya. He's like, look at this guy. He does these incredibly difficult things, living his whole life like a dog. He just wants to know, what's next for him? After all that, where's he gonna end up? But here's where it gets interesting. The Buddha doesn't answer. He says, Punya, just let it go. He actually says it twice. Now, whenever this happens in these ancient texts, it's a huge red flag. It basically means the answer is not going to be what you want to hear. But Punya just keeps pushing, and on the third try, the Buddha finally gives in. Okay, before we get to the big reveal, we have to talk about this really important idea called michadishti, or wrong view. Now, this isn't about being a bad person. It's about being completely mistaken about how cause and effect work. It's like thinking that if you flap your arms hard enough, you'll eventually fly. You might have the best intentions, but you're just wrong about the outcome. That's wrong view. Believing your actions will lead to one thing, like becoming a god, when the reality is they won't. And here it is, the bombshell answer. The Buddha says, look, if Senya has perfectly perfected living like a dog, then the absolute best case scenario for him is that he gets reborn as a dog. But, and this is the crucial part, if he was doing all this with the wrong view, thinking it would turn him into a god, then the result is way, way worse. We're talking rebirth in a hell realm or as another animal. Basically, you get what you practice. Well, when Senya hears this, he just starts weeping. And can you blame him? I mean, just imagine putting your entire life, every single day, into this one thing, only to find out that the best you can hope for is to literally become the animal you've been imitating. And that your grand ambition could actually lead to your own ruin, that's just a gut punch. But the Buddha doesn't just leave them there, devastated. He sees how sincere they are, and he offers them something more. He gives them a whole new framework for understanding how the world works, one that's not just about extreme actions, but about the intention behind them. He shows them a clearer path, a more sophisticated way of looking at action, or what we call karma. So he breaks it down into 4 different kinds of action. Think of it like a map of cause and effect. You've got dark action, bright action, a mix of both, and then this 4th kind, one that actually leads you beyond karma entirely. Let's walk through them. First up, we have dark action, or ganham ganma. This one's pretty straightforward. We're talking about harmful actions, stuff you do, stuff you say, even harmful thoughts. All of that leads to a world of pain and a pretty unpleasant rebirth filled with, well, painful feelings. Then you've got the total opposite, bright action, or sukham kamma. This is all about harmless, helpful actions, things like being kind, generous, truthful. These actions create a pleasant world, leading to a happy rebirth with, you guessed it, exclusively pleasant feelings. It's a direct reflection of your actions. And third, there's mixed action, kanha sukham kamma. And honestly, this is where most of us live our lives, right? It's a mix of some harmful stuff and some harmless stuff. And naturally, that leads to a life with mixed results. Some good times, some bad times. The human experience is pretty much the definition of this. But then there's the 4th option, the one that's not dark, not bright, and not a mix of the two. This is the action you take to end the other three. It's the conscious choice to stop the whole cycle of karma. The Pali phrase for it is kam kayaya samvatiti. It leads to the destruction of karma. This is the real game changer. This is the path to freedom. So, what happened to our dog ascetic and our ox ascetic after hearing all this? Did it just go in one ear and out the other? No way. This teaching completely changed their lives. What's really cool is they each found their own way forward. Punna, the ox ascetic, decided to become a lay follower, dedicating himself to the teaching from within his daily life. But Senia, the guy who started this whole thing, he went all in. He asked to become a monk, to get ordained and walk that fourth path, the one that leads to the end of karma. And the payoff is just incredible. Sandinya, the man who had poured so much energy into a path that was going nowhere, took all of that amazing dedication and focused it on this new clear path. He practiced with everything he had, and you know what? He did it. He reached full enlightenment. He became an arahant, someone who is completely free from suffering and the cycle of rebirth. Just wow. So in the end, this story isn't really about making fun of a guy who acted like a dog. It's about something so much deeper. It shows us that it's not about how extreme our actions are, but about the wisdom and intention behind them. Our actions, guided by what we believe to be true, are literally creating the world we experience every moment. And that leaves all of us with a really important question to think about. What world are you creating today?